This is the Better Life, Better Work Show, and I'm your host, Allison Crow. I'm a life and self-leadership coach for authentic and ambitious small business owners and professionals. I show up here in your ears as a transparent leader doing the same inner and outer work that you are. I'm here to remind you that you're probably a gardener and not a machine, and that soft, sustainable, and soulful success is actually available to you on your own terms. Emotional presence and wellness are also available to you as someone who juggles both an amazing business and a beautiful life. I'm here to remind you that more is not better, better is better. I'm Allison Crow, and this is the Better Life, Better Work Show. This is episode number 156. Welcome. If you're here today, what I'm going to talk about is how the 8 Cs of internal family system can support your work. I'm kind of an anti-formula lady, but this is certainly a framework that can help you in your business, and I want to share today. So the first thing I want to share is what IFS is. I've been studying internal family systems and taking courses and classes since the beginning of 2021. I am using portions of it and parts work with my clients. It is a pathologizing, evidence-based model, a means of working with our many thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and behaviors, different parts of ourselves that make up the natural multiplicity of the human mind. And it was started and developed by Richard Schwartz. There is the IFS Institute if you want some more information. Not only is it a therapeutic modality, but it is also legitimately a coaching and healing and meditation practice that can be used outside of the therapist office. And so one of the aspects of internal family systems is the concept that we have a self, S-E-L-F. We have a self, capital self, energy. All religions have a different word for it, but we all have a higher self of energy. And then it talks about the natural state of multiplicity of mind. So a part of me feels confident. A part of me feels insecure. A part of me knows this, but why can't I do it? And so for years, for a lifetime, many people I know, including myself, have already spoken to ourselves about a part of me this and a part of me that. And let me slow down and breathe. Asthma is getting to me. And so in this system, this internal family system, so as a coach, we often are working with limiting beliefs. We are working with mindset. We are working with the nervous system. We are working with the embodiments of identity and beliefs. And IFS so far is one of the greatest tools that has been able to hit the parts of me and the parts of my clients that nothing has ever been able to hit before. And when I say hit, I mean soothe and heal. And so self energy, there's parts, and parts have their roles. I can refer you back to another podcast I did with Dr. Aaron Baker. We did a podcast together, 2 coaches nerd out on IFS. But today, what I want to talk about is the 8 Cs of self-energy. And so one of the things that Richard Schwartz realized as he was doing therapy over years and is now part of this framework is that there were 8 Cs of self-energy. And so whenever he was talking with his clients and they seemed to be in a centered higher self state, he noticed that they were calm, connected, compassionate, curious, confident, creative, clear, and courageous. And so one of the things, yes, Michelle, we do have so many parts. And so self-leadership, which is what I coach on, is how do we lead ourselves and all of our parts in this thing called running a business or living life? So yes, I'm a life coach who helps business owners. And yet there are so many parts that get in the way, right? There are so many parts that get in the way. There are so many parts that request our attention consciously and subconsciously. And the idea of internal family systems is to be self-led. The idea is not to be 1,000% in self, but knowing that all these parts are here, all parts are welcome, and we want to be the leader for ourselves that our parts need. And so the idea is to cultivate self-energy and lead from self. So characteristics of self-energy are calm, connected, compassionate, curious, confident, creative, clear, and courageous. Now, I don't know if that's the order, if there's a particular order. I have read and am reading a bunch of books and training, and I don't know if there's a particular order. But what I noticed is that when I focus on these energies, and I tend to doodle a lot with my paintbrushes, and I hang things on my wall and I doodle in my journal, I noticed that the first 4 of the 8 C's, calm, connected, compassionate, and curious, are actually the energies and the embodied behaviors and love I need to give myself and my parts so that I can be curious, confident, so that I can be confident, creative, clear, and courageous in my business. So in talking to my clients who are all business owners, when they are confident and creative and clear and courageous, they are in flow state. They're able to market, they're able to sell, they're able to deliver, they're able to stand in their own credibility, they're able to take risks, they're able to learn new things, they're able to make offerings, all the things they know that work are the result of being confident, creative, clear, and courageous. But I like big butts and I cannot lie. But many of us wake up on a Monday morning after a holiday weekend going, I don't feel really creative, much less confident. I don't feel clear and I don't feel courageous. I don't feel any of the things that I need to feel to be able to do my work in the world, giving my heart, offerings, and clients the best. And so here is the actual little formula. So often we're trying to force ourselves into creativity, and we're trying to force ourselves into confidence. We're trying to force ourselves into clarity, and we're trying to force ourselves into courage. And actually, the more I spent time with myself and with my clients, and this little piece of paper, which if you're listening on the podcast will be the podcast image cover. So it's just a little note card I have with the words calm, connected, compassionate, curious, confident, creative, clear, and courageous in that order. And what I realized for me that I must have subconsciously written those in that order, because when I am being parts led instead of self-led. Now, let me be very clear too. Self-led does not mean there are no parts present. It just means that self is driving the bus instead of parts driving the bus. When I am able, with all my thinking parts, usually it's my thinking parts. It's also been this suffocating asthma part lately. So parts can be thoughts. All thinking is parts. It can be thoughts. It can be sensations in your body. It can be physical. It could be visions. There's a lot of different ways. I tend to have a lot of thinking parts, and a lot of my clients who are high achieving business owners, a lot of them have a lot of thinking parts because our thinking has actually been the thing that creates our businesses. And so, for example, we'll just we'll just be real like we always do this morning. I woke up unusually heavy and depressed. I wasn't really tired because I got plenty of sleep, but I had this experience, this sensation of the heaviness and the wet blanket of, quote, depression. My depressed parts were present. And I could see that instead of experiencing I'm depressed, I can experience it from self and notice that my depressed parts are on overdrive this morning. And so just very calmly was aware of that. I took a shower intentionally to just kind of shed some of the weekend off. I did my morning walk. And then I came back into my office. And what had been tempting in the past was to try to change my mindset, to change my state. And in the past, I was taught, and I probably also taught, change your thinking, change your life. Well, no fucking affirmation got me out of depression. But I am aware that when depression shows up, that's like a radar signal. Something needs to be heard, seen, or felt within me. Okay, this is not about the outside world. When I'm overthinking, something needs to be heard, felt, seen in me. And so, from a place of these first 4 C's, calm, I calm myself, and I connect. Hello, depression. I see you. I see that you are here and present and loud and heavy. And then with compassion, I say, I am here for you. What would you like me to know? And I get curious and I start asking it questions. Instead of, nowhere on here does it say, tell your depression to fuck off. Nowhere on this list does it say, it doesn't even say coach your depression. One of the best things I've learned about supporting myself and being self-led is to not coach myself, but to be calm, to connect deeply and fully with myself, with my body, with my hurting parts, with my protective parts, with my depressive parts. Meet them with compassion and get curious. And so this morning when I got curious and I sat down with my depressed parts, and when I say depressed, I was like, I have an intellectual desire for creativity. I had an intellectual desire. I've been thinking about planning and doing this specific podcast for a week. I had client calls today. I have some to-dos, some goals, not goals. I have some things that I want to do, but I wasn't feeling any energy for them and I couldn't connect to the energy of them. And when I was able to be calm, connected, and compassionate and curious and listen to the depressed parts, why are you here now? What do you need me to know? What are you protecting me from? What are you afraid? And frankly, some very personal, old fears came up that have been scratched over the last 90 days that have nothing to do with my business right now. Old hopes crushed. And it's so funny because these are really old things that I thought I had healed, and I had, and there's still another layer. And so when I get curious, depression literally says to me, I don't want you to get too excited because you might be disappointed. Depression says, I'm here because I'd rather you be depressed than hurt. And when I'm able to respond to that depressive part of me and witness their story and witness what they want me to know from that calm, connected, compassionate, and curious place, then all of a sudden the part of me that feels depressed literally begins to relax and says, thank you for listening. Right. And so I have an old story, an old wound. There are parts of me that are very afraid of, quote, being left, have been left a few times. And being rejected. I think most of the people I work with have What human being doesn't? I mean, like, connection is part of our thing as human beings. So why wouldn't we have some subtle fears of rejection? And as I'm curious and compassionate with these parts, they start to tell me their story. And instead of telling them what their story should be, I listen to their story. And I always tell my clients, you can listen to parts without believing them. You can stay connected and you can hear and witness their story without having to believe it as true. And often when I do, that is a very effective first layer of healing, is just to witness your parts. And what I notice, and this is why it's become, for me and for many of my clients, the formula, is when I'm feeling off, when I'm feeling anything but confident, creative, clear, and courageous in my business, the first thing to do is get calm, pay attention to the activated parts, the overthinking parts, the anxious parts, the afraid parts, the parts that feel like shutting down, the parts that feel bored, and get curious. And when we do that, what happens is the confidence, creativity, clarity, and courage rise up from that. We can't just snap, I'm going to be courageous. We can take action. We can take brave action, and then we become courageous. But a lot of times, some of these parts, and most of these parts are protective. Okay. Very high functioning parts are protective. They don't want you to feel bad. They don't want you to break. They don't want you to get hurt. They don't want you to be rejected. You all know, I don't even have to explain it to you. You know the parts that keep you invisible. You know the parts that keep you from doing the things you know that support you and sustain you. And so we've kind of figured out amongst my mastermind clients and my Soli clients that when we're wanting to create confidence, creativity, clarity, and courage to take beautiful, loving, bold action in our business, if there's something in the way, take the time to be calm, connected, compassionate, and curious. And it actually heals what those blocks are instead of shoving those blocks in a corner to get stronger later. And so that's all I had for you today. I just wanted to share that. If you're feeling off, be so fucking tender with yourself. I use that phrase from Thich Nhat Hanh. He originally started it out with, I think, about anger and taming the tiger within. There, anger, I see you. I will not leave you. I'm here for you. And I take that and say, there, depression, I see you. Or there, anxiety. Or there, tired when I've had plenty of sleep. I see you. Why are you here now? What do you need me to know? How may I build trust with you? These are some of the questions I ask these parts. And so when I can connect with self-energy and connect to these parts from self-energy, they begin to relax instead of overfunction. There's a saying in IFS, speak for parts, not through parts. So as self, when I lead my parts, I can acknowledge that my parts feel a certain way, but I can still lead in confidence. I can still lead in creativity, but I can't do that if I bypass, because self would never shove these parts into a corner. Another piece of IFS are the 5 Ps. I can show you my 5 Ps card, but I spilled my water bottle on it last week. The 5 Ps of IFS are presence, patience, perspective, persistence, and playfulness. And so what I'm finding is that these 2 cards of words give me a direction and a focus and a way to love the uncomfortable parts, what other people may be calling blocks or resistance, instead of going away from resistance, instead of jumping over resistance. We are learning to go towards the resistant parts and figure out what they need, what they're afraid of, and how we can best support them. And when we do, they chill out and step back and let self lead. And so I had a very real practice of that this morning where I genuinely am here and was on my coaching calls this morning from a place of self and excitement and joy. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I was able to do it without faking it was because I took the time to be calm, connected, compassionate, and curious with those heavy parts in a 10-minute journal exercise. And that led me to being confident, creative, clear, and courageous. Thanks for spending time with me. If you would like to join Solis, we are welcoming new members right now. Solis is my monthly coaching membership community. We are very community driven and we are very connection and coaching driven. And then the final piece is content, but that is the last part. This is not a course. It's not a class. But we are a community of small business owners and professionals who generally know how we need to do things. And we support one another emotionally, tactically. A lot of people collaborate. And then also we have coaching sessions twice a week available to you. So I would love to invite you. Breath. Asthma, would love to invite you to join a community of other business owners who want to lead not by bypassing all their parts, but by welcoming all their parts and cultivating. What did we say today? Today we said, I don't want hard success. I told my clients, I said, I want soft, soulful, sustainable success. And there's a difference, at least I've experienced, when you're brand new and you have a certain kind of energy and when you've been working for a while on something. And there is a luxury that beginners have when they don't have experience. There's an enthusiasm. And once you have the enthusiasm, a lot of your parts once you have the experience, right? So when you've been in business for a long time, you know so much more, right? You know what you didn't know when you first started. And if you had known what you know when you first started, you might have been too afraid to start. And so there's an excitement when you're a beginner, but when you are in the growth or achievement phase of your business, it's easy for scared parts to use all that evidence against you instead of for you. And so, yeah, we do a lot of that work. All kinds of things. Reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for spending time with me today. If you like this podcast, I would love a review on whatever format you listen to, and share it with a friend that you think it might make a difference. Peace out, and I will see you next week. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode and want to dive deeper, come check out the Solis Self-Leadership Society. It's my online coaching membership community. A networking community, a place to belong, and a place where you can be coached by me in life and business. We dive deep into the practices of both being and doing that help us create our unique version of soulful success. It's a special community of small business owners just like you, and it's where I show up and give my clients personal support at an accessible fee. Check it out at www.coachwithallison.com. As always, thanks for listening, and I want to give a special shout out to Elise Rich from Wide Awake Recordings for her sound production each week on my episodes, especially the car episodes, and for her music composition for my intro and outro. This show is sponsored by my 3 dogs, Leroy Brown, Clementine, and Rocky Potato. They're here to remind you to consider adopting when you get your next pet. More is not better. Better is better.